Welcome to Constellation TV. I am Martin Schneider, VP and Principal Analyst at Constellation, and I'm your host for episode 131 of CRTV. All right, now we're here every 2 weeks with all the latest and greatest in tech. This week is no exception. First up, we're going to have our great debate where Constellation's own Esteban Kolsky, Larry Dignan, and myself, we're going to talk about AI and productivity and kind of where we're at, right? Have we gotten over the adoption hump? Now we're kind of on the hook to actually show some productivity and ROI, right? Then Wang and I are going to talk about my new market overview around revenue intelligence and why that's important to growth leaders. Finally, Chirag Mehta is going to walk through his really cool new big idea report called Claude Mythos and the new cybersecurity operating model. So let's get into it.
Hi, I'm Larry Dignan with Constellation Insights, and welcome to this week's great debate where we are talking about AI and productivity. And the big question is, where the hell is it? So let's start with Holger. You have 45 seconds. AI is at an inflection point, yes or no?
Yes and no at the same time. It depends. We're in an inflection phase because inflection is not a single causal thing happening for everybody. It's happening one use case, not even one company, one use case at a time. And we're seeing the first use case being positive, but that's not enough good press yet to make an overall inflection point where everybody's saying, oh my God, I need to have it. The good news, which helps tremendously, is that boards have realized that this is something the enterprise needs to do because for the first time, they significantly can change the hand-to-machine ratio and that productivity, availability. We have different kind of economization, monetization of people. So the inflection phase is happening as we speak. It's only doing for these very aggressive technology looking forward companies for selected use cases.
That wasn't bad.
Dot landing.
46 seconds. All right, Martin, go. Where do we stand?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're getting to one in the world of like CRM, go-to-market and all that. We've proven out some use cases, right? Most people are adopting AI in their service centers to defray costs, to, get those first call resolution rates done, all that great stuff, right? And then obviously on the sales side, you've got the AI SDRs and all of that. But what's going on now and what we're seeing is, what are those other use cases where we can bring agentic AI in and do it effectively? So now vendors are actually becoming service providers again in a ways that they hadn't in years. Just saw at Gainsight's conference, they've started this, they're calling it AI native services to actually like make the AI work and be held accountable for it and be part of the outcomes. So as we start to focus, the vendors start to focus on outcome driven pricing and services, hopefully that inflection point change.
Point change.
I had
yes or no? I don't know.
I had no hope that Martin was going to hit 45 seconds. So Esteban, you're up.
So 45 seconds, really quick. I love working with people that are wrong because it makes me look better when I'm right, which is the point that we're now. Inflection point of no return. We're way past the point of no return for Gen AI. I agree with Holger. This is only one part of AI, not the entire AI. We've been working in AI for 40 years. We have another 60 years ahead. But for Gen AI, we're past the inflection point. It's been adopted everywhere. We actually understand the use cases, understand what we're trying to do, understand the few use cases where it actually works. And then is CRM where it's going to work? No, it's not going to work in CRM because Gen AI is about the wisdom of the internet, and the wisdom of the internet never worked for CRM. Inflection point, yes. CRM adoption, no. Overall adoption, meh. Use cases.
And under
3 seconds left, brother.
Very, very well done. That was good.
Wow. How do you fucking stop this thing?
All right, so I don't know where that sound effect came from.
I was trying to do a timer to make sure I don't go over, but like the whole thing goes crazy.
Separate timekeeping, interesting.
I know, that's the only way you get the 45 seconds.
The next 45-second round, where is the productivity going to come from? Holger?
Great question. I think it's going to come from all the use cases where you can control the data. I mean, basically companies struggle with getting the data in place, the data architecture for the generative AI, agentic AI era, and that's taking a longer time. It's going to come when enterprises realize the tools which come from the vendors. When you see all the SaaS vendors providing the tooling for enterprise to build their own agents because they don't know 100% sure and be. Yes, they're packaged agents. We'll see how well they do. They're like standard software, but it's really enterprise building their own agents or customizing the packaged agents where we'll see the use cases across finance, HR, manufacturing, purchasing, and of course CRM, which you guys mentioned already.
Under the wire. Well done. All right, Martin, your turn to screw it up. Where's the productivity coming from?
Well, I kind of echo Holger. I think it makes a lot of sense where we look at, where do we have the good data? Where can we be more deterministic versus, probabilistic? So where I'm looking at like quote creation, invoicing, what are the kind of things that you can get an agent to do, both like the things that humans couldn't do at scale or the work that they just don't want to do, right? So doing lookups, doing other things, populating quotes. So I'm looking at this kind of like quote to cash side of things where a lot of these things happen. You've got CPG, you've got other, things that you can go in there, or CPQ, sorry, to go in there and get the right information, because a human would have done the same thing. So, but just do it faster, do it better, and then optimize. And I think those are some of the areas like that where you can actually bring deterministic value.
You were there. I don't know what you wanted to add something. You made it. He had to add something at the end.
He was
Martin
there
is getting
and just-
better. Martin is getting
just
better.
couldn't Stop. So Esteban, where's this productivity coming from?
Great question. And actually, I'm going to add a little bit on what they said, and I'm going to separate it a little bit. Two parts. On Gen AI, productivity is coming from doing all the menial tasks that nobody wants to do and nobody can do. The things that are repetitive. I disagree with Martin on determinism. There is no determinism in Gen AI. So it's non-deterministic, but determinism doesn't matter. For agentic AI, it's replacing that Excel spreadsheet, replacing the people that work together that share files via email, replacing all the manual tasks. McKinsey, Bain, everybody found out that the best solutions for agentic AI is reinvent processes and put agents to do the parts that actually are repetitive. That's where the productivity is going to come from.
All right. Last question, last round. Tokenomics. Something we'll figure out, or the death of AI productivity? Esteban, all you.
Tokenomics. When I talk about token maxing, oh, please, let's do it. Token maxing is awesome, dude. There's nothing better than overdosing in tokens. Tokenomics, really simple. The cost of tokens becomes irrelevant as we realize that LLMs, which is the reason we use tokens and pay for tokens, are absolutely worthless in the enterprise in 95% of the cases. As we create new models and embrace models that are proprietary and center in what each enterprise needs, tokens become irrelevant. It's no longer a discussion. The discussion is going to switch to the economics or infrastructure and maintaining the infrastructure to support AI.
Martin.
Always in the middle. I think kind of to Esteban's point, yeah, like what we're going to see is a mix, right? Where you've got companies utilizing AI to figure out how to do their stuff more efficiently. So they're using less tokens where they would use tokens, and then learning and bringing in smaller proprietary models, other things, which are less kind of token centric. So it's going to be a kind of circle the wagons approach of getting, more efficient use when you're using frontier models and other stuff, but then also kind of a little more build your own so that you're not as beholden to other people that you have to pay every time you touch a piece of AI.
He knew that gong was coming. He was like this. He was like, oh.
We can learn that,
I can make it. I can make it.
All right, Holger.
So to me, tokens is a genius marketing invention, right? Because we used to talk about the cloud cost already in the past, right? And that was always measured in dollars, right? Or in whatever currency you're working in. And now we have this mythical token thing, which is not the same across the cloud, across use case, across machines, right? It's just a monetization unit. What the thinking has to be for AI, and the vendors are mixing that up with the tokenomics, token maxing, and so on. You need to make sure that you leverage what the cloud is there for, the elasticity, that if your business is doing better, you pay more for IT costs. If your business is not doing so well, you pay less. And tokens are just another form of elasticity being cost for you, which you have to use smartly like you did the cloud. And people keep forgetting, I'm running in the public cloud already. I could have the surprise cloud bill at the end of the month. So the same thing with tokens.
What about when you do a hybrid cloud, when you do part of the models and part of the work in a private model and you only use the public cloud for storage and compute power? Either tokens don't become useful. They're completely useless in that model.
Well, then if you don't use your tokens, you don't pay for tokens, right? So if you run your AI on premises, right? I mean, if you want to run tokens or not, you probably use your existing metrics of cost. What does that server farm cost me? And how idle is it, right? Which is a dirty secret of all on-premise computing, that there's massive idle times because they're designed for peak times, right? But I personally think that's another debate we should have. Running AI on premises. I mean, we just saw Dell had a record quarter yesterday. Who would have thought that Dell grows 88%, even on the desktop side for 18% or something crazy, right? But running it on premise doesn't have that elasticity. And right now, no CIO on the earth, on the planet, no CTO can go to the board and say, I would like to have 25 grams of GPUs. This is exactly what's going to be fine for us, right? And maybe next year I'm going to up to 50 grams or whatever that is, right?
That's why I said a hybrid network. I mean, you actually run your models and all your resource intensive stuff internal, and then you use compute power to do the calculations and all the analytics and all that stuff. You don't need tokens for that.
It's a great model, right? I mean, remember the days, forget AI for a second, cloud bursting, right? Which on paper is a great model as well. Very few, if nobody has ever implemented it, right? And the pressure to show value and deliver something in AI is even bigger, right? So I see the Dell revenue as CIOs on premise saying, look, we have GPUs now as well. We even can run NVIDIA on premise. And what are they going to run, right? To who are they going to give that? What are the frameworks to do that? There's so many questions on top. So it's kind of like a me too on premise part. And don't misunderstand me. I'm a big fan of on-premises, right? So I wrote the market overview for next generation compute architectures where you can use workloads seamlessly from the public cloud to on-premises because they run faster. You can control the cost. Yeah. You're legally compliant with data residency. And this latency thing, right? To say that at last, right? The latency thing is real. It's a problem for dynamic applications where people or other agents are waiting for doing something.
I'm going to say the last thing and we'll wrap up. I agree with you 100%. And what you just described is the next iteration of AI value shield, where it's going to start showing the real value.
And that's it for this week's debate. I think next time we're going to talk about on-prem AI, whether it's BS or not. Thanks a lot for joining us. And we'll catch you next time.
All right, here with Martin Schneider. He's our lead of all things that are related to sales, revenue, growth, and of course, he's been one of the experts in CRM and CX for a long time. So you've got a new report out. We're looking at it fresh off the presses, at least the digital presses, revenue intelligence. So what is it? What the heck are we talking about? Why is this category hot? Because I keep hearing it everywhere. I mean, that's not even why is it hot. I want to know what business problems we are trying to solve here with this category.
For sure. I mean, look, revenue intelligence is kind of becoming, it's the execution engine for growth. And that means something and it's important, right? Because right now everyone's scrambling for growth. And that's the problem, right? We're looking for profitable growth that, enhances customer lifetime value. A lot of the analytics, a lot of the other, maybe even revenue platforms, which is another area that I cover, they might help you close deals. They might do pipeline inspection. But when you bring it all together into a kind of full journey orchestration that is really aimed at customer lifetime value, that's revenue intelligence. And that's why it's hot right now.
You're right. Margin compression is huge. It's causing everybody to figure out how to get the growth. Like literally 85% of the Fortune 500 is only growing at single digits. I mean, just think about that. That means 85% of the Fortune 500 should be reading this report because they're totally not growing and they're working 10x harder to stay still. It is out of control. So, okay. So who are the players? Not the vendors, but where are they coming from? In the space? Are there pure plays? Are there companies that have been in this space that are just working their way into it? Are there companies, that are just acquired companies to be able to get into that space?
I think it's a little bit of all that. It's kind of a mix, right? You've got your RevOps people, that traditional guys who lived in the middle office who are extending outward, really starting to take over kind of more of the sales process, bringing in more data sources, more analytics, right? Then you've got some of those kind of what I would call maybe even legacy, good platform CRM providers who can then take all that data and do a lot more cool stuff with it that then gives you that growth optimization, right? And then you do have a couple kind of what I would say, the interesting coming from the sales operations, call recording, sales coaching, trying to become more of hey, we take all this stuff all these interactions and all this information and then and tell you what to do with it to optimize growth at the both, granular and macro level, right? So there's kind of an interesting mix. Now, what I don't really get into much is a lot of those I would call them kind of the AI native, and we might call them the AI exponentials, because some of them really haven't gotten there yet in terms of the maturity of what they've done, and they're just kind of coming in. But I'll be looking at them, and as the short list evolves and as my market overviews evolve, they'll probably be more included. But right now, it's kind of a lot of evolution of legacy vendors.
This is great, right? I mean, we're going to keep seeing this kind of evolving of where revenue is headed. Now, who's buying this stuff, right? Is it the CEO? Is it a chief revenue officer? Is it someone that's like a director for demand gen? Like, what are the buyers?
I mean, look, you might find a CMO who's picking it up, but really we're looking at chief revenue officers and that emerging concept of the chief growth officer, right? Where you have that either individual or committee that really does look at like the orchestration of growth, full journey, full life cycle, right? Where it's not just about hunting for new deals. It's not just about, your chief customer officer looking to maybe try to figure out how to sell and actually do expansion, right? It's really kind of giving that to someone who can own that. So it could be the expansion of ownership of kind of your rev ops and your middle office team, but also it's really like that chief growth officer, chief revenue officer, if they're not a chief sales officer, again, really focusing on revenue and not just deals. So that's really, because this has to be strategic, right?
This is exciting. Even before you joined, you've been talking about revenue intelligence, and this is like a hot area. So you've been looking at the chief revenue officer, the chief growth officer.
Right.
What are 3 to 5 big trends in the space?
Yeah, I mean, well, first off, I mean, of course, it's agentic blank, right? And you can apply that to anything. Revenue intelligence is no different, right? Because that kind of is what really does pull it together to bring it from, again, pipeline inspection and all these kind of isolated but very important areas of the revenue lifecycle, but bringing them all together to create those workflows end to end and to break down those data silos, right? The agents are doing a lot of that work without a lot of disruption, right? So you can bring this revenue intelligence layer in conjunction with your existing CRM, MarTech, and other deployments. So that, that's a really big trend there, right? And then I think, some of the other areas that, we're really thinking about outside of that is like, to the AI to the next level is like, this is some really, really specific things. And it's about critical stuff like your revenue, right? So don't just do these, DIY against generic LLM approaches. You really are seeing more and more usage of, I would say, kind of purpose-built AI and even domain specific, smaller language models underneath some of these tools. Because again, this needs to not just be about generic AI, it needs to be about revenue, and then it needs to be about your revenue process and what's important to your business. So we're seeing much more specificity in the deployment of the AI and both big and small growth teams partnering with those vendors for success because they have much more domain specific. It's like we talk about, right? Like, it's like expertise is easy, experience is not. That's why I'm covering a lot of these legacy guys, because they have that experience and they're bringing that into the AI. So that combination of like AI strength, but with specificity is getting to that precision data, right? And then the other trend is really like, how do we do quick wins? And this is why the revenue intelligence vendors, rather than a DIY approach, is really working, right? Because a lot of that purpose-built, pre-built agents, things like that, chief sales officers, chief revenue officers, chief growth officers, they're typically line of business people. They don't want to get under the hood. They don't want to build agents. They don't want to think about IT other than as something they consume, right? So it's really shifting the build versus buy, because they want more ownership, but they're not ready to get under the hood fully like, you would if you were just going to Claude and trying to build some revenue intelligence layer from scratch with cowork.
Well,
right?
and these are pay fors, right? By putting them in, you're going to actually get some savings, get some growth to pay for it. So they're typically revenue neutral if you do these properly.
Exactly, and you've got some baselines that you can look to then go against and measure the ROI against, get quick wins, and actually look like as a CRO or an aspiring chief growth officer that you actually have a strategy for AI in place. You're not just doing it willy-nilly.
Definitely. Now, what your buyers ask for? I mean, among these vendors, it looked like from your report that they're getting there and they're not fully mature yet. Some have one thing, some have others. We'll talk about the vendors in a little bit, but like what should buyers be asking for?
Yeah, again, look, as you said, there's no kind of silver bullet. And look, and I go through a ton of requirements in the report. So I'm only going to give a few here, right? But one is obviously you need like a lot of like multi-source and multi-type like data acquisition, and that needs to be automated, right? You need to be able to bring in data from far beyond your CRM to really get that customer view, the reality of your interaction. So that's got to be, call records, meetings, chat, email, every kind of interaction, plus third-party data, plus all the first-party data that wouldn't necessarily make it into your CRM without manual entry, and no one wants to do that, right? So that's a big one, right?
I know a client that tried to get their AccuWeather feed tied to when the deals were closed because they wanted to see if there's a correlation. I mean, you never know. There's a sunny day and like 70% of their deals.
Gotcha. And then, and then the obvious ones are like the agentic tools, right? Because you don't just want a bolted on Copilot or a prompt on the side, right? These need to be workflow driven, not just prompt driven. So because again, we're really trying to get as autonomous as we can for the things that are like, super definitive, right? And then the things that are a little more probabilistic, you can work with them, right? But that's some of it. And then I think, obviously a little bit more of how do we leverage some of this to enable as close to like B2B self-service in ways that we really kind of couldn't before. So how do you immediately recognize who that customer is, what contracts and other things have they had and do have in place, so that immediately from a self-service perspective what the agent can offer up and get as close to kind of closing and at least getting invoices and quotes together without a human having to get into the loop until we're finalizing kind of red lines and discounts. And even then, some of that can be done via the AI, right? So really kind of pushing self-service to the edges that we haven't before in a B2B scenario. That's the kind of things you're looking for, because that optimizes customer lifetime value, reduces, cost of sales, and really beefs up those margins.
Well, you mentioned a bunch of names: Clary, SalesLoft, Gong, Salesforce, Outreach, ZoomInfo, Conga, Sugar AI, Zoom Revenue Accelerator. You got a whole bunch of folks in here. It's a really good, important report. If you're looking for any kind of vendor selection, definitely ping Martin on this. He's the world expert on the space. More importantly, if your vendor is not featured here, let us know. We want to know what you're using. And if you're a vendor trying to get a hold of Martin, well, good luck. No, I'm just kidding. If you're a vendor trying to get a hold of Martin, just let us know. And if you meet this threshold, he'll definitely cover you. So that's kind of where we are. But revenue intelligence, it's a market overview that's recently put out. It is hot off the presses. And more importantly, you can get that on the ConstellationR.com website. And if you see this video, of course, please like and let us know about it. So, hey, thanks a lot, Martin. Thanks for being on here.
There's a simple reason Mythos got my attention. Security teams are not short on findings. The real challenge is what happens when those findings can be validated, tested, and changed much faster. I recently published a report on Claude Mythos and the new cybersecurity operating model, and I wanted to share why I wrote it. At first glance, Mythos can look like any other model. New capabilities, early results, a few public examples, and a lot of discussion around what it can or cannot do. But the reason I wrote about it is more practical. Mythos points to a shift in the work that comes after discovery, which is validation, testing, chaining, and safe remediation. For years, security teams have had a growing number of tools that can find possible issues. That part still matters. But many organizations, the harder challenge starts after something is found. Can the team confirm that the issue is real? Can they reproduce it? Can they understand whether it can actually be exploited? Not everything can be exploited. Can they tell whether it can be changed with another weakness? Can engineering fix it safely? And can the organization test and ship that fix before the risk gets worse? That is the space Mythos points to. The real pressure is now around speed and judgment. How quickly teams can take a possible issue, confirm whether it matters, and move it towards a safe fix. That is why I think topic deserves attention from CISOs and CIOs, product leaders, and engineering leaders. The report looks at Mythos as both a model and a market signal. On the model side, Mythos appears to combine long context code understanding, reasoning, tool use, and cyber-specific workflows. That makes it relevant to vulnerability validation, exploitability analysis, chain construction, patch validation, and post-entry activity. On the market side, the release approach is just as important. Anthropic has not released Mythos as a normal self-service model. You just cannot get it. It's being made available through a restricted Defender-focused program. It's a Defender-focused program. That's a key point. That tells us something important. Advanced cyber capabilities now has to be understood through access, governance, disclosure, and operating model design. That is one of the central points of the report. As these capabilities become more common, organizations will need to rethink part of the cybersecurity operating model in very practical ways. Security teams will need tighter connections between discovery, validation, engineering, testing, release management, and monitoring. Enterprise buyers will need to ask better questions about how quickly validated risk turn into shipped fixes. How fast you can actually ship. If you are building security products, developer tools, cloud platforms, or even managed services, Mythos is a signal that the market may start valuing outcome depth more than findings volume. Buyers will care less about another dashboard full of alerts and more about whether your offering helps them validate risk, fix risk, reduce exposure, and actually prove that the fixes actually worked at rapid scale and scale. Everything has to work at rapid speed and at scale. For services firm, the opportunity looks very different. The value will shift toward code-based readiness, test harness design, triage workflows, patch engineering, secure deployment, and incident response integration. Clients will need help turning model-assisted insights into production-safe actions. There are strong signals that Mythos class systems can help with meaningful cyber work, especially around validation, chaining, and post-entry execution. At the same time, let's be clear, the public record does not show that these systems can autonomously compromise well-defended enterprises from scratch. A lot depends on the workflow around the model. The test harnesses, controlled environments, human review, engineering processes, and the ability to turn findings into safe fixes. That distinction really matters. A powerful model can accelerate parts of the work, but it will not compensate for weak security, unclear ownership, poor testing, or slow release processes. The model's value depends heavily on the operating environment around it. This connects directly to my broader work with our clients. I'm spending a lot of time at how AI changes security operations, application development, software supply chains, and cyber resilience. Mythos sits right in the intersection of these areas. It affects how software gets tested, how vulnerabilities get validated, how quickly patches need to move, and how defenders should think about the time between discovery and impact. So when I look at Mythos, I'm focused on turning the signal into practical guidance. The goal is to help clients understand what should change, where the real risks are, where there is useful defensive leverage, which claims need more evidence, and how organizations should prepare as similar capabilities show up in security products, cloud platforms, developer tools, and managed services. Mythos is still very early, but there's enough signal here for leaders to start planning. Cybersecurity programs will need to get better at turning security insight into engineering action. They're not going to have a choice. The advantage will go to organizations that can validate faster, fix faster, and still keep control over quality disclosure and production stability. If you are a client, or if this is an area that you are tracking in general, I would encourage you to read the report. It goes deeper into what Mythos is, what is the public evidence, and what it shows and what it does not show, and what organizations should start doing now as these capabilities become more common. I would also welcome your feedback, especially as this market continues to develop very quickly. Thank you so much.
All right, now that is a wrap on episode 131 of Constellation TV. As always, thanks for watching. Next episode, Constellation's own Holger Mueller will be the host, so make sure you tune in and see everything he's got to say in 2 weeks. But in the meantime, as always, follow us on X at Constellation R, subscribe to Constellation Research, our YouTube channel on YouTube, and as always, check out Larry Dignan's insights and his notebook and all the cool things that we're covering, everything that happens in tech over at constellationsr.com, and make sure you're subscribed to all that. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Thanks again.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to play a countdown or something, you're more than welcome to.
You want to do a 60-second shot clock? I'm fine with that.
Or I can just do this.
30 seconds.
Yeah, we'll do
seconds. We have to be short and punchy.
Yeah, so we'll do, I'll start the timer on my watch. You'll each get a minute to talk about, the inflection point. Are we there yet? And
I think minute is too long.
Oh, very.
Yeah.
Don't let me say it takes
Sound
over.
effects, Hannah. Why don't we have a sound effect like the Oscar music?
Yeah. And if you want to run the sound effects, you can.
Yeah.
So if anybody rambles too long.
Fair.
Hey, I'm the producer. Everyone stop touching things.
That's the one I do when Liz is 15 seconds over the shot clock.
Which is all the time.
I think you need to wear your sunglasses, Larry, because you've kind of like a inverse Zorro look here. It's not lighting. It's really your melatonin and your sunglass choice from yesterday.
Oh, right. Yeah, there's
yeah.
that. Well, you bike in the morning, this shit happens. So.
Let's see how many intros Larry screws up.
Come
Take
on.
one.
Kingston.
Faith, dude. You gotta have faith. All right, here we go.
Hey, I'm just counting. I'm an analyst.
He's the smart one. He only says you guys go ahead and say something stupid and let's just move on.
I'm just a point guard in this equation.